Richard Heath, welcome to the Forum. You're Executive Director for the Australian Farm Institute, and you're going to be talking on the panel for how we can help better, food, migration and climate change. Well, I'm going to start with how can we help better? From your point of view, what will you be saying to the Forum today?
So from my point of view, I'll bring an Australian context into this. And when we talk about how can we help better food security, Australian agriculture is in the business of exporting food. The value of our agricultural industry last year was $90 billion. We exported $75 billion of that. So, we are entirely dependent on providing food security globally to others around the world. So what's really interesting for me, being here in Europe and hearing all the perspectives on food security in terms of the sustainability of ongoing food production and the climate threat to food production, is what we hear sometimes in Australia coming out of that discussion is the perception of restrictions, the perception of barriers to producing food in the way that we believe to be sustainable. And what I'll talk about in my panel this afternoon is where a lot of that comes from is the idea that we impose sustainability through labels, an organic label, a regenerative agriculture label, a biodynamic label, whatever label that you want to impose under the perception that that is more sustainable agricultural production. Now, none of those labels actually guarantee outcomes. And it's outcomes that we need. We need more biodiversity. We need cleaner water. We need more carbon sequestration. And the Australian perspective is more that we shouldn't have artificial restrictions imposed on how those outcomes are achieved. It doesn't matter as long as we achieve those outcomes.
This is a very relaxed view, I think, compared to what you might be hearing at the EU. What have you made of what you've heard so far?
It is a relaxed view, and it has been interesting to hear sort of some of the discussion and the debate around things like whether the 25% target for organic production is too high or too low. Now, again, for me, that's really getting in the road of what the discussion should be about, which is we need more biodiversity. Now, you can deliver biodiversity in any farming system. It is not constrained to one particular label. Some of the best farmers I know are organic, some of the worst farmers I know are organic. Having a label doesn't make you a good farmer that delivers biodiversity. Being a good farmer makes you a good farmer that delivers biodiversity.
Do you find that badging gets in the way potentially? We talk about nature-based solutions, and then we talk about climate smart, and the list goes on and on and on. And again, we'll talk about these things at the Forum today, but that's the sentiment.
It does get in the road, and I think that we get that out of the road is that we need to accelerate research and development to understand what the outcomes are that we need to deliver, to put really good metrics around those, to understand how we can measure performance and get against those metrics, and then reward performance against those metrics, and leave it open.
You make it sound so simple, Richard.
I think we make it more complicated than it needs to be a lot of the time. Now, it is understandable because we don't have a lot of the technology, we don't have a lot of the science yet to be able to measure those outcomes. And so in the absence of that technology, we impose practices which we assume to deliver the outcomes that we're looking for. The better alternative is to actually measure the outcomes. Yeah. So we just need to accelerate our efforts around the ability to do that, and then leave farmers to innovate into how they do that, as long as they're being rewarded for delivering those outcomes.
Yeah, putting rewards for delivering those outcomes in the right place at the right time is incredibly important and complicated, isn't it? And you've mentioned speed, and this seems to be a key theme, that actually we need to just galvanise this and get it going.
There's no doubt there is the need for urgency. In Australia, we are seeing the climate crisis playing immediately now into agriculture and the sorts of seasonal variations that we're having and the extremes in those seasonal variations. We've gone from one of the worst droughts on record, finishing 3 years ago, to 3 years of floods. And it just seems that we swing from one extreme to another extreme. Climate impact is having an impact on agriculture production now. It's not in the future.
You're involved in a collaboration as well, I know, and that's to look at innovation and bringing together the gaps in the learning to maybe to accelerate the kind of outcomes that you've been talking about.
Yeah, so the Global Forum for Farm Policy and Innovation is a collaborative effort between ourselves, the Farm Foundation from the US, the Canadian Agri-Policy Institute and the Forum for the Future of Agriculture, which we're here for today. And we're really excited about the possibilities that collaboration is going to bring to have that evidence-based discussion about global farm policy and food systems, because so many of these issues that we're talking about are global issues that need a global response, and the more consistency we can bring into that response, the more unencumbered we can have trade. All of those things go towards better food security and better sustainability outcomes.
Richard, thank you so much and enjoy the rest of the forum.
Thanks, Alex.